Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode. Gentlemen, so today we're going to talk about ownership and victimhood. And this is something that I shared with the brothers in the intensive program, and I think you're going to find it quite helpful because it talks about relapses in the later stages of your reboot. And you might be under the impression, especially if you're not a part of our program, that relapses do not occur in the late or maintenance stage of your reboot, but they do. They are rare, but I would argue that when you experience them, they can feel a lot more intense than relapsing in the early stages of your reboot. And that's because you've invested a lot more into yourself. You've invested time, you may have invested money, you've invested in a new identity. You are now this person who doesn't slip, who doesn't relapse. You've counted wins so many times. You've been thankful. You've written down your gratitude exercise and said, I am so thankful that I'm in such a different place from when I joined the Porn Reboot system. Months ago or a year ago, I was slipping consistently every week. I did not even believe that I could go for 7 days without viewing pornography or masturbating. And look at me now, it's been months. I am so thankful. And then you relapse, and it feels as if nothing changed. The relapse feelings are very familiar. Maybe you're even watching the same genres of pornography that you did from your early reboot, which can be quite disturbing, and it can make you feel that I didn't make any progress. The symptoms of a relapse are still there. The irritability, the low-level depression, the brain fog, the fatigue, waking up the next morning and feeling that sense of regret and shame, it's still there. Now, granted, you are so much more adept at dealing with them and moving on from it, but it's there. It's not a good feeling. So we're going to talk about why that happens. Now, as most of you who have followed our system know, there are 3 major stages that you go through when you are rebooting. You are changing your habits, you're changing your lifestyle, and you are changing your self-image or your identity. And by the time you get to the late stage and you get to the maintenance stage, it is very rare that you are dealing with a habit issue. It is usually an identity issue. And within that identity, you are either what I call an owner or you are a victim. And it is the cultivation of the victim mindset within that identity that leads to slips and relapses. And when you understand this and you can start making decisions from a stance of ownership, well, all your relapses go away. So let's talk a little bit about that today. Ownership, as I define it, is really a created mindset. It is something that you create for yourself. You build it. You're like, I own this. I am not at effect of anybody. Nobody has an impact on my mindset except myself. And what a person who has the stance of ownership does when they experience any sort of victimhood. So when you feel like, man, somebody did something to me, or poor me, I guess I'll always be struggling with this behavior after all these years. It seems like no matter what I invest into to end this behavior, I'll just always be a porn addict. Well, you stop yourself and you do 2 things. The first thing is you can either believe and identify with it, which is what a victim would do, or you can challenge it and then you can let it go. And this is very important. I know it sounds simple, but you'd be surprised the number of people who will believe this and identify with it. Like you're saying it, but there's actually a comfort in being a victim There's a comfort in the familiarity of victimhood. And anybody listening to this, I want to make it clear, you're not a victim if you are a regular listener of the podcast. You can identify with the concept of victimhood, but you have enough of an owner's stance that you can make that a pillar of your identity. So you can identify with victimhood, but you're willing to take ownership, and you're actually taking ownership in some areas of your life already. It is impossible to be a part of the Porn Reboot system, definitely impossible to be a client of ours if you're a victim. It just doesn't work. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the second thing you can do, like I said, is you can challenge it. You can challenge those victim thoughts, the victim self-talk, and you can let it go. Another thing about that ownership mindset is that the ownership mindset is always about the present moment and how to use that to create a future. Men who have this ownership mindset understand that in order to be effective and efficient in the present moment, you don't have to solve things in the past. You don't have to solve things in the past to be effective at your life today. Victims, on the other hand, are fixated on solving their past issues. This is one of the reasons why I keep saying, I've said this for years, and I know some of you deep down still don't believe me. I say that there is nothing like a root cause. It's just a term that is brought up. Yeah, the root cause of this, the root cause of this. But I want you to understand this frame. If you believe in a root cause, then you believe that there is something in your past that is preventing you from getting what you want in the now, in the present moment, and that is preventing you from therefore getting something and getting to where you want to be in the future. That means that you have to go back to your past and solve your past issues in order to be happy now and in order to have what you want in the future. Now, why would you think that somebody who tells you that you have to solve your past issue is somebody who is interested in your happiness? I just don't get it. When I see ads, when I hear therapists, when I hear people talk about like, you need to fix the root cause of your pornography addiction, or they even say that people coming out now saying, very popular people saying, pornography is not a behavior issue. It is a root cause issue. I'm like, how are you helping men by telling them that they need to be fixated on solving a past issue? The only thing that actually matters is now. The past is gone. We forgive ourselves for things in the past. We learn from our mistakes in the past and use that to create momentum in the future. But all we have is this very moment and the future, which is not even determined. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we know that our past does not determine our future. It is what we do in the now that determines our future. So, brother, if you still have some part of you that believes that, hey, I would love to find out the root cause. Like, there's so much literature on it. And when the therapists and the psychiatrists talk about the root cause, and when they go back, and yes, I know, when you talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist and they bring up your past and you go like, wow, so that makes so much sense. My relationship with my father, my relationship with my mother, the things that happened in my past, wow, I see how they shaped who I am today. Well, no shit, Sherlock. So what now? Now you found out that the things that happened in your past had something to do with shaping you. Obviously, the things in your past have something to do with shaping you today. But what does being aware of the things that happened in your past have to do with changing your behavior now? Y'all are getting scammed. It's nice to know those things from the past. It is eye-opening. Oh, so much that we can learn about ourselves. But it does not change in the now, nor does it help you in the future. Victims are fixated on solving issues from the past. You only have a limited amount of time. Stop digging into the past, especially those of you who have gotten to the later stage of your reboot. While it is helpful to work with a therapist, maybe even a psychiatrist, it is best to work with them to resolve issues in the now, to supplement your reboot, as opposed to spending all your conversations with them diving into your past. Again, just a reminder, we are talking about the frame of being an owner versus being a victim when it comes to your self-image and your identity, which is critical to the late stage and the maintenance stage of your reboot, which is critical to getting you to the point of having the identity of a man who does not need pornography in order to do anything in life. An owner, a person with a frame of ownership, gives permission. He gives permission to himself to do the things he wants to do. But a victim gets permission externally. Some guys feel that I am maybe a little bit harsh on men who say, I got to check with my wife about that price, or I gotta, my wife said that her friend has a therapist and that therapist was pretty good for her friend. So my wife recommended, dude, you are a victim. And that is the reason why I do not work with men who say, I got to check with my wife. Why? It's not about the wife. It's not about the masculine and the feminine. Well, frankly speaking, a little bit of it is. But it is because, in general, that is a victim mindset. An owner gives permission to himself. Even if there are many men in the intensive program, in the implementation program, who will just straight up say, listen, I would love to be a part of your program. Right now, it's not quite in my budget. So I'm going to work with somebody else, but I will save up for this. And when I'm able to, I will become a part of your program. Simple. Like, that's the conversation we have. We're like, all right, bro, just keep in touch with us. Here's a private number you can reach out to. Like, you've been direct, you've been honest with us. We understand that not everybody is not in the right financial situation. This is a person who has given himself permission to do what is necessary to get to where he needs to be, as opposed to the victim whose entire frame is not about giving himself permission. He's so used to going to ask mommy for permission. I have very little respect for men who act that way. Now ask yourself, where else in your life are you trying to get permission externally? You think I got permission from somebody to end my behavior with pornography? You think I got permission to start businesses? You think I even got permission to coach? No, I did not. I went out there and I did it. I gave myself the permission. Until today, I do not need to go online Googling to find some of y'all do that too. Y'all just, do you think it's okay? Is it weird if I work with somebody who helps me quit pornography? Bro, victim mindset. Now, when I work with clients and I find that a client is stuck in the intensive, most of the conversations I've been having in the past 2 years with our corporate clients who are in the later stage of their reboot, or business clients who are scaling their business as well. And in the late stage of their reboot, one of the things that puts them at risk for slips are the life decisions that they have to make, usually when it comes to their business or their career. Because for a lot of men, identity is closely tied into career and finances. So this is not a problem that every man faces, but quite a few do. And so when they show up and they speak to me, I mean, obviously one of the benefits is that I run multiple businesses, but at the same time, I'm a person who struggled with this out of control behavior as well. So when they're stuck, the first thing we do is we look at what you have created. What is it that you have created in your life? How did you create this situation for yourself? Any situation you're in, whether it is financial or whether it is your career, it is something you have created. An example is there are a lot of men who are in the corporate world, and their goal is to work in the corporate world, save up quite a bit of money, or get to a high income based on maybe the role that they have or a promotion, and then start a business on the side or start their own shop or consultancy or freelance. But then they find themselves stuck and unable to do so as they get older. Oftentimes, they have created that situation. An example I often find is a man will get promoted to the point that the responsibilities he has in the corporate world are so much that he cannot back off. So he's now cranking 65, 70 hours a week. And his dream of starting a business on the side is so far away. And that's because he chose to get that promotion, which was going to pay him $30,000, $40,000 a year more. Unfortunately, it also gave him 15 to 20 more hours of responsibility per week. And if he were to renegade on any of those responsibilities, instead of being demoted, he's now going to get fired. In fact, if he had waited instead of taking the promotion that paid him $30,000, $40,000 more, and he had stayed there, he would have an extra 15 to 20 hours a week to start a business on the side. But this is a situation he created for himself. He's stuck, and now he feels like a victim. Why does he feel like a victim? Because he cannot see that he can change it. So he goes like, I have no time. I'm making all this money, but I don't like where I'm working. I have no freedom. I still only get 2 to 3 weeks off. Sometimes I don't want to be at work and I don't want to work, but I have no choice. I'm not able to make it to my kids' games. You start feeling like a victim. So what I do is I show men how to see it as something that they have created. You created that situation for yourself. It is not the corporate world. It is not your career, nor is it a circumstance. And when you can see it as something you have created, then you can change it. Victims, on the other hand, all a victim can see is why it can't be done. It's impossible, JK. Dude, it's not possible. It's not possible for me to change it. That's the way this industry is, man. Like, once you're up here, I guess the only thing I can do, JK, is to go through it. I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. Well, then you're going to be stuck in being a victim. Their mindset has not changed. Brother, where you go in life is determined by who you are being in this very moment. And in this very moment, even as I'm speaking, you are either an owner or you are a victim. I'll say it again. Where you go in life is determined by who you are being in the moment. I believe it was Viktor Frankl that made a statement about the space between stimuli and response. So you experience the stimuli, and before there is a response, there is this space. This is where everything happens. You have a choice in between that. Are you being the person who chooses the response, or are you a person who experiences stimuli and immediately reacts without pausing to choose who you will be in that space? Because there's always two choices: to be an owner or to be a victim. And that applies directly at a high level to your reboots, especially in the later stages, which is not about tools or coping strategies. If you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, but I want the tools. What are the techniques? I'm counting days. I'm using willpower. Oh, I've been going strong for a couple of months. It's been good. I've been failing. Like, you are not rebooting. You're just listening to this as mental masturbation. You have no strategy. You have no deep understanding of the program. And you probably need to go to the description below this podcast and click on the link and get on a call so you understand what the hell you're doing. Because on a high level, it is all about identity. And the high level is where you need to get to. A couple more things about, just to really drive this home, the difference between the victim mindset and the ownership mindset. Owners, like I said, are about the now. But owners, when it comes to taking action, are always thinking about today. Like, what is the thing that I can do today to move this thing forward? Literally. I have sat down with people and I can identify their ownership mentality, because when I share something with them, even in a casual setting, not a coaching session, the owners will pull out their phone and take a note of it. They'll be like, I'm just taking a note of that, bro. Victims will smile and go like, man, that would be nice someday. The owners are already like putting it on their notes, because later on they're going to go back, and or the minute I leave the conversation, the minute they have a free moment, they are going to be going online and they're going to be like, what can I do today to learn more about this idea, to implement it? Heck, they might just want to find out if it's bullshit or not, but they're doing something about it. The victims just sit there with this dumb smile on their face and they're like, man, that would be pretty cool. That would be nice. I see it on Zoom calls too. I could be in a group setting and you can literally see the people with ownership writing it down. And the victims are just sitting there looking at me with these empty eyes, just like, yeah, that sounds cool, JK. Let's talk about your approach to life. So once your identity has changed, your entire life changes as well. Like I said, where you go in life is determined by who you are being, and who you are being is your identity. So when it comes to being a victim's approach to life is about giving all the power to circumstance. And some victims are real professionals at this. Some victims just use God and Jesus and religion as their way of covertly ceding all power to circumstance. Well, it was the will of God. If God wanted me to do this, I would have done that. No, that's just a sophisticated religious way of going like, well, it just happened and I had no control over it. You're not taking any responsibility for the results. And that, my brother, is a life that is built on regret and fear. I want to bring up those two words again: regret and fear. Regret and fear. Today, before listening to this episode, how much time did you spend in your head in regrets, and how much time did you spend in fear? Because, my brother, if regret and fear are some of your primary emotions, then you are likely living the life of a victim, or you are in victim mode and it's time to snap out of it. An owner's life is based on what he is here to do at the moment, and a victim's life is based on what he seeks to avoid. Victims are here to avoid things, to avoid the hard work, to avoid failure, to avoid disappointment, and you will never be a risk taker. When it comes to your personality, I found, and I'll be honest with you, this is something I just learned in perhaps the last year or so. I found that owners have more of a tendency to modify their personality to be who they need to be in order to follow through with their commitments. So commitment is doing the thing you say you were going to do long after the emotion when you made that original commitment has passed. So sometimes you do have to modify some aspects of your personality, and it might be uncomfortable, but it doesn't matter because the commitment you made comes first. However, I have noticed that victims unknowingly will break commitments easily, and they will do so in order to save their personality. This one is also very important because sometimes you might be doing it so naturally. You will claim that you have values and standards or principles, and you say like, no, that's not the type of man I am. I'm not that type of man, so I'm not going to change myself. Well, what if the only way for you to go through with that commitment was to change the person that you are? This is not about doing something that is immoral. This is not about doing something bad. This is literally about changing who you are in order to follow through on a commitment. You won't do it. I see men do this in relationships where they will refuse to change their personality or to adjust their personality. Not at all. They're like, no, I'm not going to do it. This is the type of person I am. Like, you're a nice guy and you have a commitment to your relationship or to your partner. But in order for you to honor that commitment, you need to change that personality and you need to stop being such a people pleaser. You need to draw the line somewhere. But you believe that drawing that line will make you seem like a bad guy. You believe that guys who do certain things like that are bad boys, or that that's a very abrasive way to work with your spouse or your partner, or that your spouse or partner might get upset. And you don't want people to get upset with you because then you're going to be seen as a bad person and you're a people pleaser. So you refuse to adjust your personality. And as a result, your relationship falls apart because you're not doing what is necessary in order to honor the commitment. I'm not giving any specific examples. There's so many within relationships. But ask yourself, where is it that I am breaking my commitment in order to save my personality? In business and in your career, even in your reboots, there are people who refuse to change their personality. They refuse to change the parts of them that are deeply ingrained in order to go through with a commitment. We see that in the porn reboot system, where a man will hear everything about the program. He's so excited about it, but he says, is this program based on biblical principles? we're like, well, yes, it's based on biblical principles, but it is not a Christian program based on biblical principles, and I cannot be a part of the program. Okay, cool. Well, do you agree with everything in the program? Do you believe in the concept of habits, lifestyle, and self-image? Yes, I do agree with those things. Do you believe that it is right for a man to aim for free will, happiness, autonomy, and to be able to think critically? Absolutely. I agree with all of those things. Well, what is the problem? Do you believe that slips are also data? Yeah, I love that idea. In fact, that's the thing that got me on this call with you guys in the first place. So what is the problem? Well, it's just not based on biblical principles. And if it's not based on being a Christian, then I just cannot do it. And the reason he does this is because his personality is so deeply tied to the identity of being a Christian. It is not about the actual principles of being a Christian. It is just simply the feeling that comes from being a Christian. And so, even though he's committed to ending his out of control sexual behavior, if he feels that whatever he's doing is going to threaten his personality, not threaten Christianity, it does not change. We have pastors who come through our program, ministers who come through our program. In fact, they come through our program and they end up being stronger Christians and going deeper into their faith, because you will need to rely on your faith if you are a Christian to get through this program. But no, anything that could threaten that personality, he will not do it. And thus he breaks his commitments to himself. And he justifies it without knowing he's a victim. The reason why I'm being so emphatic and putting out a complete episode on this owner-victim mindset is because you don't even know when you're being a victim. You don't know when you're being a victim. There are people who do it with their career as well. They just do not want to change their personality. I have told many people career-wise that, listen, you're going to need to put yourself out there. You're going to need to be a little bit uncomfortable. You're going to need to ask people for things. Ask for the sale. Ask for the job. You're going to need to lead people and call them out. You're going to need to raise the standard for yourself. You're going to need to wake up earlier. You're going to need to get your body together. You're going to need to do this with consistency day in, day out. Are you willing to do that in order for you to accomplish the thing you said that you truly want when you joined this program? No. They're not going to say it, but you will go through the motions day by day and then wonder why you're not able to accomplish anything. And gentlemen, let's bring it back to identity and your out of control behavior and the later stages of your reboot. In the later stages of your reboot, you've gone for months, no slip, no relapse, no edging, none of that. You've been doing quite well. And then you start noticing, and this might even be a pattern for you, that every couple of months, there'll be these behavioral patterns that will change and end up in a relapse. Sometimes it is due to chronic stress, which is the bad type of stress. Sometimes it is due to an environmental change. You move to a new place, you get a new job. Sometimes it is due to a relationship issue or a persistent unresolved issue in your relationship. Maybe you have some betrayal issue with your partner. She's not yet ready to forgive you. Maybe your sex life is dead. Maybe there's a health issue that you or your partner are dealing with. Sometimes when these things persist for too long, you can find yourself switching into victimhood. But you're not aware that you're switching into victimhood because other areas of Reboot Capital you are taking ownership in. Your career might be doing well, but there's a problem in the relationship. Relationship might be going great, but you might have a financial issue. Career and relationship might be going well, but then you have a persistent health issue, or one of your children or loved ones has this issue. And you don't use the principles within the program. There's no accountability. You're not reaching out to anybody. You're not talking about it. You're not processing the emotions. And slowly, in between the stimulus of the stress, the stimulus of the unresolved relationship issue, the stimulus of that feeling you get when you look at your bank account and it's not where it's meant to be, something changes between that and your response, and you start feeling bad for yourself. Slowly, that victim frame is now nurtured. You've planted the seed. You're now putting fertilizer on it. You're now giving it sunlight. you're giving it nutrients, and it grows and grows. And when you joined this program originally, a part of you was a victim. A big part of you was a victim. And now you've nurtured it again, albeit not in your sexual behavior, but in a different area of Reboot Capital. And it will do the same thing. You are in this program because your issue is not alcohol. Your issue is not meth. Your issue is not crack cocaine or heroin. Your issue is your sexual behavior. That is the thing that you and I have traditionally always used to medicate our strong emotions. And so when we become victims, that is what we do. So you must, in the later stages of your reboot, as you work on your identity, be mindful of this. And if you know that you are living as a victim, then it is time to have that all-important conversation about what can I do to live a life that is mostly ownership and take ownership of everything in my life. If you don't know how to do that, I am an expert at this, and I will be happy to have a conversation with you to move you from victimhood to ownership. Before you book that call with me, brother, you must be willing to get on the call and admit that you're a victim. If you show up and you start acting like, there's this guy who messaged me the other day, and he had seen one of my emails. He responded and he said, JK, I've been on the call with the reboot strategists and we've talked about a lot of things. And I was like, what y'all talking about a lot of things? It's an audition for you to find out whether you're a good fit for the program or not. But he was just like, we've talked about a lot of things and then he just went off. And I got a lot of emails like this, but this was the most recent one. He went off on a lot of things. And all of them had to do with being a victim. Now, anybody reading this email would not guess that this guy was being a victim. But some of the things she brought up were that, I would love to be a part of the program, but, I don't really want to do XYZ. I'm still kind of figuring out if XYZ is my thing. That's victim thinking. A victim is always doing what he seeks to avoid in life. He's always looking for the things that he wants to avoid, instead of doing what he's here to do. Then he was like, I would love to commit to XYZ, but I don't think that that's in my values. Again, that is victim thinking. An owner becomes who he needs to become in order to honor his commitments to himself and to his values. A victim is always willing to break his commitments in order to save the current personality that he has, a personality and character which is leading to consistent slips and relapses. I think he brought up another thing about I'd love to right now, but it's just really impossible in this current season of my life. Again, owners are always thinking it can be done. And because they're thinking it can be done, it doesn't mean it will be done immediately. It means that they're going to find a way, and people around you can help you get it done because they see that you have a can-do mentality. Victims, on the other hand, are always, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter. They will always somehow come right back to why it can't be done. And then he ended it with, but you know what? I'm going to check with this person. And then if it's okay, I'll be certain to get back again. He didn't even know it. He doesn't think he's a victim because he sounds very confident. You might sound very confident, but owners give themselves permission. There's nobody they need to check with to get back to nothing. They don't need external permission. They just give themselves permission. In fact, what I should do is I should pull some emails from brothers who are very, very confident in the way they speak and they communicate. I've been doing this for 13 years. So we have all sorts of communication with brothers. And they're very confident in the way they communicate. But they don't realize that they are communicating as pure victims. It's so interesting. But anyway, that is my message for you guys today. Hope you find it helpful, and I'll speak to you guys later on in the week. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot Group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.